So a reminder that next week is going to be Hasbro Pulsecon 2021. It's going to be October 22nd and the 23rd. You know what that means. We're probably going to get a lot of reveals. We're probably going to learn about fictionally what's going to be happening with the Transformers brand. Hopefully we're going to learn something about Transformers Legacy for 2023. Get a little bit of an idea what that Metroplex still was from the Cybertron Metroplex that we discussed just a few days ago. And maybe even get a few pre-orders that are going to go live and people could get hyped and pick that stuff up from Hasbro Pulse. But another big thing that the Hasbro PulseCon has done over the past couple of years is they've had the Hall of Fame fan vote be a thing and really influence where the brand is going with the decisions that we make. And while the Transformers Hall of Fame itself, it debuted back in 2010 with BotCon, and that was really just more celebrating individual characters within the brand and having some human creative people inducted into the brand, be it voice actors or comic book creators or whatever. There was a little bit of a fan vote there, but it was really just to vote in those characters. And there wasn't a big influence by those voting. Like, us voting for those characters didn't have a big indication of what was going to happen in the future with those characters. It was just for fun. But in 2013, the Hall of Fame fan vote ended up becoming something that really would influence the future of the brand in one shape or form, be it immediate or in the long term. And in 2013, we had the Create a Transformer fan vote, and that led to the creation of Windblade. And we could all say it, Windblade is still around today, still is a big part of the brand. And dare I say, I've said many times, she really is like the Wonder Woman of the Transformer brand. And what I mean by that is, much like with DC, Wonder Woman represents the female part of the DC brand. In a lot of control art and group images, I always see Windblade being that representation for the Transformer brand. So she's been around for a while, and I love the character of Windblade. I think she's really cool. Love the design. They skipped a year, and then in 2015, they did the Create a Combiner, and that was Victorion. And while she didn't really... she was in the IDW comics and stuff like that and a few other things, but she didn't really stick around much in the long term. And me personally, I think the best thing to come out of Victorion was probably the Megatronia Mega Empress repaint retool, which I think is a fantastic toy, and get it if you can. So, we got something out of that. And then in the second half of 2015, they also asked us to pick our next Titan class. And that was a voting between Omega Supreme, Scorponok, and Trypticon. Obviously, Trypticon won that and ended up becoming our Titan class for that year. They took another year off, and in 2017, they asked us to pick our next Matrix Bearer. And that was all over the place. It was like you could pick RC or Hound or Megatron or Shockwave or Thunderwing. Even Starsaber was on there. Imagine that. Imagine if Starsaber would have won that. Think about that in a different world. But ultimately, in the end, Optimus Primal won that fan vote, and then Optimus Primal ended up becoming a big featured part of the Power of the Prime line. He was the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive. He was a retail leader class figure. He was a central part of that Power of the Prime's Go 90 web series. So a big part of that. And again, that voting influenced all of that. In 2018, things then changed up completely, and then we ended up with a whole bunch of other stuff, because now we were going into our War for Cybertron trilogy, and they were going to ask us who's going to be our first pairing. And they asked us, Needle Nose or Trax, or is it going to be Spinister and Wheeljack, or is it going to be Mirage and Impactor? Obviously, Mirage and Impactor won. They ended up being in multi-packs. They ended up being in singular releases. That mold still reverberates to this day in the case of the Mirage. So it's something that, again, influenced the long term for the brand. And oddly enough, some of those other ones that I mentioned still ended up getting toys in the end. But, everything happens sooner or later. In the second half of 2018, they asked us to vote the next vintage G1 reissue. And we had a choice between Perceptor, Astro Train, Thundercracker, and Skywarp. Astro Train won that one and ended up getting terrible distribution, not really showing up much anywhere, and became a very difficult reissue to find. Either you couldn't find him at all, or he was in that one Walmart where there was a wall of them and nobody was buying it. So unfortunately, that had a little bit of a sad ending. In 2019, they asked us to vote for the next G1 reissue. It was between Skywarp and Blaster. Blaster won that one, and he had a better distribution. People were able to find him, no problem. And again, he's my first Transformer, so hey, that's great that people could pick him up. In the second half of 2019, they asked us to vote for our second, character that should be in the War for Cybertron trilogy, but this time it was for Earthrise, and it was between Gnaw, Runamuck, Needlenose, and Shrapnel, and Runamuck won that. And oddly enough, even though Runamuck won that, we ended up getting a Roundabout, and we ended up getting a Gnaw anyways. So sometimes those votes don't really make much of a difference in a lot of ways. And then last year, what we had a different kind of shift in how they were going to do the voting. And this is now how the voting seems to be, where they would ask us, in the case of last year, they asked us, what was your favorite Transformer Prime character? And what was your favorite toy from War for Cybertron Earthrise? And then, of course, the answers were like, the winners were for the Earthrise toy, Skylinks, the Commander Class won, and Transformers Prime Knockout won the Transformers Prime character vote. How did that influence things? Well, in the case of the Prime vote, we ended up, at least we know from listings, we're going to be getting a Prime Knockout RED figure and something in Legacy. So it shows that there's the influence there. And of course, the human element that was inducted last year too. Greg Berger, the voice of G1 Grimlock, Skyfire, Outback, Long Haul, and then some, was inducted into the Transformer Hall of Fame. So now we get to 2021. What is it going to be? So the Transformers Facebook page and the Hasbro Pulse Facebook page put up a post saying that the fan vote is now open, and it is to vote for your favorite Beast Wars Season 1 character and your favorite War for Cybertron Kingdom toy now. So it's a similar reflection the last year where they asked for a favorite Prime character and Earthrise toys. Now it's a Beast Wars Season 1 character and Kingdom. Interesting that they ask Season 1, because I get a feeling maybe they might ask Season 2 or 3 in the following years, and it might be a reflection of plans of the future. Maybe I'm reading too much into this, but keep that in mind. So I'm going to post in the pinned comment below the link to go do the voting, so you could vote for your favorite Season 1 character and how that might influence what we might get in the future. It might be a remake through the Legacy line, a brand new version of that character. It might be a choice for how he or she will be done in the vintage reissue line of Beast Wars. Maybe they'll find that character getting reissued there too. Who knows? But historically, we've seen whoever wins those votes, something happens. Hasbro, makes a decision based on that. So again, check that out. That's all going to be available to you guys as you're hearing my voice right now. Usually these votings last for 48 hours because they're going to have some kind of announcement and answer for us all next week. Again, Hasbro Pulsecon, October 22nd and the 23rd. Check it out, and I'll see you then especially.